Guys can grab your seats, that'd be awesome. If you heard me and people behind you didn't hear me, tap on the shoulder and let's grab our seats. Really glad everyone can make it today. Just to give you a little quick, what my dad wanted out of today was not a somber memorial service or a religious ceremony or a funeral. He literally wanted a summer barbecue party, and so we're trying to emulate that as best as we can. We're going to just read through his life story obituary. My amazing sister-in-law, Jason's wife, Lori, is going to read that to us. And then we are going to sing his favorite song together. And then we're going to have a few of his longtime friends and ministry friends share a few words. And then we're going to do an open mic thing where we can have you guys share. We'll start with family first, and then anyone else in the room that has a funny story. We're trying to keep it lighthearted, so tell a funny story or memory, and we'll keep that to like 2 minutes or so per person would be awesome. And then I'll share a closing, and then we'll enjoy the rest of our day. So appreciate you all for making your time to come help celebrate a great man, and here's Lori.
Thank you all for coming. I have the privilege of reading the obituary for Ed, so we'll try not to cry. First of all, I just wanted to say that Ed was so special to me, and I won't be sharing it to 2-minute speeches, but I grew up without a father, and so I believe that God purposely placed me in this family because Ed was my father, and he was such an amazing man to all of us, and so let's hear more about his life. So on December 18, 2025, John Edward Ed Decker Jr. went on to his heavenly reward. He passed away peacefully at the age of 90, surrounded by his family. While our hearts are broken, we are also filled with gratitude for his life, his faith, and the many years God graciously gave us together. Ed was the definition of a life well lived. Born to John Edward Sr. and Ann Decker on November 25, 1935, on a farm in upstate New York, Ed enjoyed an adventurous childhood along with his two sisters, Nancy and Judy. He grew up in Jersey City, New Jersey, and graduated from Leonia High School in 1953. He attended university in Utah, where he married his first wife, and they had 5 children: Cindy Lou, John III, Jeffrey, Jennifer, and Stephanie. During this time, he was actively involved in the Mormon Church. Following a divorce, Ed moved to California. Ed met his beautiful wife, Carol, in California, and they were married in 1969. They moved to Washington State in 1972, and their son, Jason, was born in 1973. A couple years later, Ed became a born-again Christian and left the Mormon Church. This pivotal moment in his life was the beginning of his ministry, Saints Alive in Jesus, formerly known as Ex-Mormons for Jesus. Ed and Carol lost their daughter, Julie, to a premature birth in 1975, and their son Joshua was born in 1977. For over 50 years, Ed faithfully served in Christian ministry. His love for people was unmatched, and his life reflected a sincere devotion to God. He authored 13 books, wrote hundreds of pamphlets, and through his preaching and teaching led countless thousands to experience the saving grace of Jesus. More than his testimony or accomplishments, Ed often said he hoped to be known simply as someone who pleased God. From the moment he encountered Jesus, he lived with a zeal and surrender that shaped everything he did. While Ed is most known for his Christian apologetics work that specialized in helping Mormons and Freemasons, his second ministry was as a pastor. Ed served as an associate pastor at City Church with Pastor Wendell Smith, and in Palm Desert at the Upper Room with Pastor Doc Suis. He had a heart to serve his pastors and lead Bible studies and men's groups. Ed also delighted in life's simple joys, loving Jesus, his wife and family, church, helping others, travel, fishing in the outdoors, hot tubs, ice cream, maple bars, pasta, white wine, and baseball hats, Western novels and movies, Seahawks football, winters in the Palm Springs desert area, and summers in the Pacific Northwest. These were the everyday pleasures that reflected his warmth, humor, and appreciation for God's creation. In recent years, we were blessed with precious time together. In 2021, Ed and Carol made their home in the Pacific Northwest after many cherished years spent in the Southern California desert. Following a stroke in the spring of 2024, Ed was placed into hospice care. With the daily support of his family, he was able to stay at home until the week of his passing. Ed was given only a few months to live at the time of his stroke, but battled through with a positive attitude, living more than a year longer than was estimated. Even until the very end, he was full of life, laughter, and love. Ed leaves behind a remarkable family legacy, his beloved wife of 56 years, Carol, 8 children, 10 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren. Family was central to who he was, and his love for each of them was constant and steady. He is preceded in death by his daughter Julie, 1975, sister Judy, 1990, his father John, 1992, his mother Ann, 2003, his sister Nancy, 2009, and his daughter Cindy in 2024. Thank you. And now we have Aaron Young to help lead us in the example.
Thanks, Lori. Well, Ed was an incredible man, and his favorite song was How Great Thou Art. And I'm going to invite you just to stand if you're willing and sing along with me. Just an incredible song. Perfect. All right, here we go. No one's listening, don't worry. Oh Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. And when I think that God his Son not sparing sent him to die, so I scarce can take it in, that on the cross, my burden gladly bearing, he bled and died to take away my sin. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. When Christ shall come with shout of acclamation and take me home, what joy shall fill my heart. Then I shall bow in humble adoration and there proclaim, my God, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art.
Thank you, Aaron. My brother-in-law, by the way, if you didn't know who that was. Okay, we're going to start. Tom Bauer is one of my dad's best friends, 50 plus years. I've known him my whole life. And he was a youth with a mission leader for 20-something years. And then he started a ministry called Surfing the Nations. James and Olivia went with them a couple summers ago. Jason's toured the world with them. And Tom Bauer couldn't be here. He's on a mission trip in Mexico, so he's excused. But he did send us a video. So we'll go ahead and play that for you.
All right, greetings, Decker family. Hey, this is live from Mexico. I just want to say condolences to you, Carol, and to Josh and Jason and the rest of the family. Ed was one of my amazing heroes. I have so many amazing stories to tell about him. And so, Ed, I know you're up there looking down, and I just wanted to say what an amazing, amazing man that he was. He was a close friend. I had the privilege of going to so many places and doing so many radical things for God with him that it's unbelievable. I think one of the greatest things that he taught me is that when you do anything great for God, you'll always be misunderstood. And that's the incredible thing about Ed, is he loved everybody, regardless of whether they agreed or disagreed with him. And that's one of the great things that he personally modeled to me. We had so many adventures. I mean, probably one of the greatest highlights is when we met the King of Tonga and we were in his palace, and Ed and I didn't have a suit, so we had to go get a suit, and we had to kind of crawl in to the palace and say hi to the king. And it was so amazing as we got to know him, and Ed shared his testimony that God just used the king to really share Jesus with the community there in Tonga. What was amazing is that Ed and I, we went around the whole island and praying just over each Mormon church, and somebody spit right on our window. And it reminded me that the founder of the Salvation Army, somebody spit right on, they were marching down the street and somebody spit on the soldier next to the general, General William Booth. And he said, "What should I do?" To the general, and the general says, "Leave it on, it's a medal." And so Ed taught me that, hey, no matter what the response was, we still love the Mormon people. And I know that Ed is up there rejoicing with all the hundreds and probably thousands of former Mormons who have found Jesus Christ as their personal Lord and Savior, the real Jesus. They're up there celebrating with Ed right now. And so, Ed, I just want to say thank you, and the rest of the family. It was a life-changing time to be with him. You know, he always taught me it's always right to do what's right, even if you don't feel like it. And he was such a lover of so many friends and all the crazy stuff. I mean, we're in the Philippines doing crazy things, and we went, if you can imagine this, Ed and the King and I are in Disneyland together, sitting on Main Street, and we have, you know, guys with their machine guns in their kind of little cases, and Ed and I and the King are just sitting there, you know, right on Main Street, just rejoicing, and all the interaction that we had with the King. So we just want to say thank you, and we want to just give a tribute to an amazing man who was an adventurous, a traveler, a risk taker, and did so many great things for God. So we just want to say salute to you, Ed, and the rest of the family. Thank you for your faithfulness. He's a hero, and that's all I can say. Love you all. Bye. Bye.
Tom's a long time friend. Next, I'd like to invite up Rick Baker, who had an opportunity to pastor with my dad on staff together at the City Church for a number of years. And then after that, Dr. Seuss is going to come up and share with us. And Pastor Seuss is going to share after him about their time pastoring together in Palm Desert. Rick.
You know, what a great event this is. I just got bumped into so many people that I've known for decades, and some older than me, some younger than me, and it's just I think Ed would have liked this, you know, in terms of just getting people that were his friends all together. I looked at this, and when you announced what he was the founder of, I thought you said serving the nations, and then I saw it said surfing the nations. And I have to admit, I was a little envious. All right, as a pastor, I just thought, oh, that's the ministry I like to have. Yeah. Surfing the nation sounds like a pretty incredible thing to be a part of. I wanted to tell you about what my first encounter was with Ed Decker, and it was long before I ever met him. I was actually just went to a movie, and little did I know, the movie was called The God Makers, and I didn't know what it was going to be about, but I went to it, and I was intrigued by it, of course, and enjoyed it, I suppose. And Ed was, I don't want to say starring, because it wasn't like he was acting, this was his life, but he was certainly portraying himself and telling a story. And it was great, and I was intrigued, and then I got, out of that and forgot about it pretty much, I guess. And then eventually, I moved to, that was about 40-some years ago, and then eventually moved up here to the Seattle area, and we're working in a church, had to help start the church. And then somebody told me that this guy that's a pastor by the name of Ed Decker was coming to the church now, and was like, Ed Decker? I think I know who that is. And I was really anxious in a kind of a nervous sort of way of meeting him, because he was larger than life to me. I mean, he had a world-known ministry, he had a movie that he had helped produce and make and had circled the globe. And then I finally got my chance to meet Ed, and my gosh, that smile of his, and that voice of his, that calming, deep voice that he had, really just put me at ease. And I found out that, you know what, he's just anybody else that's letting God use them in their life. And he was used by God. And so Ed and I became friends from that point on. At one point, in many instances actually, but the first time especially, he introduced me to somebody as their pastor. And it just floored me, because I was humbled by that, because I had so much respect for him. First of all, he was older than me. I always respect people who are older than me. He had so many more years of ministry in him than I had, and had so much more influence. And then just to find, that he's just a normal guy like me and just wants to be a friend. And I know that he's got a couple of other pastors in the room here. Ed must have been the kind of guy that needed a lot of pastors in his life. My wife told me a story, and I know it's true because Ed referred me to it once as well. But we oversaw the pastoral care at our church, and Ed showed up at a hospital to pray for some people that were friends of his, and my wife also got a call from this person who's in the hospital. Their relatives, could you please send somebody from the church to pray? And it turned out that Ed and my wife showed up at the same time. My wife didn't know he was coming, but they went in eventually, they got allowed to go back to the room, and they're praying for this person. I don't even know who it was. Maybe you're here today. But praying for this person, and Ed goes in there and he just starts speaking faith over the situation and into this sickness kind of a scenario, and God can heal you, and he's going to heal you. He's healed me so many times. I got smacked by a bus, and look at me, I should have died, and here I am. And how many knew that Ed got hit by a bus, a city of Seattle bus? And he survived that. I mean, you don't survive something like that without a few scrapes. But my gosh, he should have probably been dead. I always thought of Ed as somebody that was like a cat with 9 lives. Just so many scrapes. And I remember one time he wasn't getting along very well, and he was disoriented, and his sleep, it turned out a sleep apnea issue, but that was taking a real toll on him physically. And then he got through that, and he turned out to be much better after he got treated for that. When you run into somebody like that just seems to go through stuff, their life is great, but it's maybe not easy, that's Ed Decker. And a lot of times, a lot of things, a lot of situations that he went through in life, and when you're going down a dark alley at night, you want to have somebody like Ed Decker right alongside you, somebody with a few scars on their cheek that know what a tough fight is. And he went through some, and he had great faith to overcome anything that God would allow to come into his life, that the enemy would send into his life. And God would allow it to give Ed another victory that he could use to turn around and speak faith into somebody else's life who was going through a challenge. I'm honored to be here today and just loved Ed Decker. In fact, I've got a picture of him on my phone. People I care about greatly, even though they're not my relatives. We all probably have pictures of our relatives on our phone. But I'm a kind of a sentimental person, so I also have pictures of people that I just care about. And Ed's on there because when I'm flipping through my pictures periodically, I love to come to one of those pictures of a person that's gone and just stare at it and look at it and just remember the good times. And there's been so many great times with it. We went golfing. Here we are at a golf course. I planned a couple of golf events early in the history of our city church days. And I got teamed up with Ed, and Ed thought he was a better golfer than he really was. In that sense, he was about as good as me, because I'm not very good at all. And so we were probably meant for each other. And then one day, I saw him, ran into him in the hall at the church, and he invited me to go golfing, and I was like, no, Ed, I don't know if I'm going to golf anymore. And I don't know if you should either. And he was telling me how good he was. I said, what are you talking about? And I guess he had gone out to the driving range and taking some lessons, or maybe not the lessons, but at least the driving range, and he thought he was a much better player at this point in time. The last thing I'd like to just talk to about Ed's involvement at our church. Ed and Carol became the seniors pastor at our church, and not to be confused with the senior pastor at our church, they were the seniors pastor, which meant that they worked with the people that were 55 and older, I suppose, and did a great job working with them, and some of you were probably in that group. What do you guys, you don't want to be called seniors now? I get it. But eventually, Ed also held another role at our church, and he was our, what do we want to call it, our internet pastor, our cyber pastor, I think we called it. And Pastor Wendell had Ed, any of the emails or inquiries that we had, because Wendell was also very busy, he would turn those inquiries, most of them probably about doctrinal things, he would give those to Ed. Could you please respond to this? And because Ed was a theologian as well, really studied and continued to study the Word. And Ed held that very important role down at our church, as well as being that of the seniors pastor and the not so great golfer. Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ed. Funny story I'll just interject here is my dad's last golf swing. I was with him. We were visiting him in Palm Springs, and we were on the first or second hole of the course they lived on in Shadow Springs, Shadow Hills, and Indio. And I have a bad slice. I'm not that great. I like to think I'm a better golfer than I actually am. But I hit a pretty good drive down the middle, maybe 230, 240 yards, whatever it was. I was super happy with it. Well, my dad gets up there with this super jumbo, Big Bertha XL, super soft whippy shaft thing that he had. The thing was this big, and gets up there, and it's as true as it is anything I've ever said in my life. He gets up there, and somehow the stars align, and he just ropes one, bounces right past my ball, and keeps rolling up about 20 feet past my ball. And I'm like, I've never in my life seen him hit a golf ball that well. He ends up, we get up to his ball, and he's like, pick it up. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, pick it up. I'm done. I'm like, you're not going to finish it? He goes, no, I'm done. I'm never swinging the club again. I'm ending on that. And I swear to God, he never touched another golf club his entire life. So, that's a funny story. I'd like to invite Pastor Doc Seuss up, who ran a church in California in Indio. My mom and dad were so lucky to find that church, and my dad found a great community and a great pastor, and I invite you to come up and share with us. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pastor Doc, and it's a privilege for me to be here. It was a privilege to be the pastor of Ed Decker. We hit it off right away. He showed up on Sunday in the carol, and he said, God told me to come here. And I said, he did. I said, okay, that works for me. And we became close, shared meals, fought spiritual battles together from the enemy, and just had a good time. And Ed had a great sense of humor, as you know. And anyway, after getting to know each other for a while, he said, he goes, "Hey, I want to ask you if you would speak at my funeral." And I'm going, "Well, that's kind of random, but, well, you're in good shape." And he's going, "Well, the last 3 guys I asked, they died." Because I outlived them. And I'm going, "Great, and you asked me?" And we had it was quite a relationship. He lived near me, and I would pick him up for Bible study every Thursday night. And we just got to know each other better and better. And he served at the church with me, and he shared one time, he goes, I'm getting older, and I feel like I've been a racehorse for the Lord all these years, and I'm just not doing anything now. I'm not doing enough. And I said, "Well, we can fix that, Ed, no problem." And so I said, "Good, next week you're going to take over the Bible study from me." And he's going, "Okay, I can do that." I go, "I know you can. That's why I asked you." And he did a study on the life of David. And I've been around. I'm not that young. I know I look like I'm 30 years old. But no, I'm old. I was in line with the older folks. I've sat under some wonderful pastors. I've worked with everybody from David Jeremiah, MacArthur, and many other folks. Had relationships with these guys. Ed Decker, he opened the Word up the next week on the life of David. Everybody was just stunned how powerful it was. And he kept going week after week. And finally, on the way home, I said, "Ed, you're making me look bad. Come on, I can't keep up with you. You're just killing it with these lessons and practical applications." And he's going, "Well, he used to call me the kid." "Okay, kid." He goes, "You'll get better. You just keep preaching." And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Ed. Next Thursday, I'm going to bring a Mormon and put him in the front row and let that be a distraction for you, so you're not so good." Anyway, he laughed. I want to tell you, I miss Ed? He was my friend. He really was. Like the other pastor that just spoke, to work with Ed, what nobody knew was, Carol, that I had been praying. Starting a church, being a pastor in California, it's not easy, especially the California thing. Yeah. And I prayed, "Lord, send me a right-hand man. Send me somebody to fight the battles with me." And here comes Ed. God sent me here. And I'm going, "Okay, Lord." And we had a wonderful, wonderful relationship. Do I miss him? Of course I do. But I'm not sorry that he's gone. He was my friend. He lived his life for eternity. He lived his life for this real place called heaven. I was reading my Bible even this morning, and just some verses that jumped out at me. In 1 John 3, it says, "Beloved, we are now God's children, and what we will be has not yet appeared. But we know that when he appears, we shall be like him, because we shall see him as he is." And Ed and I, we talked about that verse so often, and as good as things were in the ministry and how happy we were serving Jesus, we had no idea what the future was going to be in a place called heaven. And so my friend, he went immediately, absent from the body, present with the Lord. And I'm just so blessed and happy to been a part of his life. Apostle Paul said, he's talking about his life, he said, for now we see in a mirror dimly, that is a glass that's kind of foggy and you can't really know what's coming in the future. Apostle Paul went on to say, he says, but then, and Ed, he has already experienced that then, because he's there now. But then, face to face, I shall know fully. Ed loved Jesus Christ. He was a servant. I was vacationing in the Cook Islands years ago, and we took a snorkeling tour, and the guide took us to, my wife and I, to one of the islands, and it was unbelievable. It was clear turquoise water, white polished sand, palm trees, fish everywhere. You just walk into the water and there's a 3 or 4 foot fish swimming by you. And somebody else asked, what's the name of this island? I go, it should be called Heaven. And the guy goes, it's called Heavenly Island. And as I thought of that, I thought, no, we have no idea how sweet and beautiful and precious heaven is going to be. And that island, as sweet as it was just a glimpse of what Ed is experiencing right now. I think of the book of Revelation, and it talks about heaven. No more cancer, no tumors, no COVID, no murders, no crime, no taxes. And there's a crystal clear river flowing from the throne of God. Ed, he asked me, we were having lunch, he's going, that crystal river. He's going, he called me pastor as well. Pastor, do you think there's fish in that thing? And I'm going, I don't know, Ed. If you need fish to be happy in heaven, there'll be fish in there. He's going, well, I got to get me a fly rod when I'm there. And Ed was just such a marvelous man, and my life is different from being his friend. I'm sure I didn't change his life at all, but he changed my life, and God used him. And thank you, family, for inviting me to be here with you today.
Funny story is Doc's church was called the Upper Room Church, and for months and months they would drive by it, and they were kind of drawn towards it. I think it was the Holy Spirit drawing them towards it, but for many months they avoided it because they didn't want to go up the stairs. Turns out it was just the name of the church. It was a 1-4 facility. So now is the time when we want to open this up to you all. We're going to start with family first. If you have there's no obligation here at all, but if we want to open up the mics for people to share a minute or two story, a memory from Dad, and go ahead and come on up. And I'm not sure the best way to do that. I can walk around to you, so if you raise your hand, anyone in the family want to share, I'll bring the microphone to you. Anyone at all. Jeff's going to share something. I'll bring the mic to him. I was glad they had a wireless mic. My brother Jeff.
Hello, everybody. It's so nice to be in a wireless world where you can just run the mic around. I'll be quick. I just, Grandpa, when he passed away, Dad's father, at the service, basically I just sort of went through a list of some of the practical jokes my grandpa had played. And everybody was laughing, and I thought that Grandpa would appreciate that. And like Josh has been saying, I think having a lighthearted celebration is just right up Dad's alley, because that's how he looked at life. He celebrated life. And then one example, and there's thousands of things I could talk about with my dad, but Thanksgiving before he passed, we were over at Josh's place, and Jason was trying to get a photo of Dad, and And every time, Jason got the family together, he ran over with a timer, and then Dad would make some big silly face. And he did that for like 3 times, and Jason didn't even realize it for a while, but Dad was having the best time just making silly faces when we were trying to take a picture. And to me, that was a lot like Dad. He's a good-hearted person that wanted to help people, and was also kind of funny. For some reason, that G didn't pass on to me. I'm told as an old hatchet, but still, that was my father, and I loved him very much. I'm sorry to see him go, but at the same time, he would complain when I see him that, why was Jesus taking so long to take him? He wanted to go home, and I'm just glad that Dad's finally home. And it just really warms my heart to know that life goes on, and he left behind a legacy that I think will continue to help people find their way. So that's pretty much what I want to say.
I'll speak for the family. Anybody else want to share a word? Anyone else? Go ahead and beyond the family. Oh, my mom wants to share. That's amazing.
Well, I just want to tell a couple of stories about God's provision. Years ago, Ed was poisoned by arsenic when he was in Scotland, and he was going to teach on the occult origins of Scottish Rite Masonry. And so someone slipped some arsenic into his Diet Coke at lunch, and by the evening he was sick, but he still managed to get his message on the radio. And Ed probably would have died from that, except for the fact that he was staying with a vet, at the home of a vet. And the vet said, well, I think that you've been poisoned by arsenic. I recognize it. He said, I don't know what to do for people, but I'm just going to give you what I give my horses. And so whatever it was, it saved Ed's life. And when he got home, our doctor met us at the at the airport, and he said he took a clipping of Ed's hair and had it analyzed, and he had 7 times the lethal dosage of arsenic in his body. And anyway, then another time, we were at a conference in Salt Lake City, and Ed got really sick, and he was just so sick all the way back to Sun Valley, and he ended up there was a new little hospital there, and a doctor there had just recently transferred from the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta. And sure enough, he said, I think you have Legionnaire's disease. And so no one else would have been able to recognize what that was and give him the right medication. So God always has a provision when the devil tries to take us down. God provides. And one other thing is, I just want to say that it was a privilege being married to Ed. He was so easy to get along with. He loved people like no one else, and we had a wonderful life together. In 56 years of marriage, the word divorce never was mentioned, and I'm so happy that we're able to leave that legacy to our family. And so none of you are allowed to get divorces. Okay, that's it.
Go ahead and open up to anyone in the room now who would like to say something. I can bring the microphone to you and raise your hand. All right. John Damero, there you go.
Yeah, the Bible says that everyone needs a mentor. Iron sharpens iron, one man And so there were many times, as Carol knows, some of the past experiences of my life, tragic moments with my son, my daughter, going through a divorce some 26 years ago. Ed was my mentor. He was always there. And you know, when I go over and I talk to him, it wasn't religious. You know what I mean? And, you know, throwing a bunch of scripture at me and everything else. We sit there and we talk about baseball. Oh, that was cool. And we both like the Mariners. We talk about fishing. But then we end up, John, God has a purpose for you. He's not done with you. And it was those words that spurred me on. And I'm thinking right now, man, Ed's still spurring me on. I may be 85, Ed, but I'm going to get to 90. I don't know where I'm going. You know, I know where I'm going to the Lord, but I'm going to get to whatever age you want me to take me. But a lot of is what Ed spoke in my mind. Some very private things that changed me. And so thank you, Ed, and thank you, Carol, for being, you know, we had the opportunity, Carol and I think it was on your 50th anniversary. In the, what's that restaurant down in Kirkland? Anthony's Home for to remarry these guys. Wow, what an honor that was. Remarry them, and what's there to remarry them? And look at them already. You know, they were perfect. But yet, what an opportunity that was. So, thank you, Carol, for being such an example of a wife that you were to Ed. God bless you.
All right.
Anybody else would like to share? No? All right. Rusty Steer, long time family friend.
Yeah. So I've known Ed, I think, probably 45, 50 years, family friends, part of a group called Peregrine Group. And we would go out, shout out to Peregrine Group, we would go vacation with the Decker family. And I remember traipsing around with Jason, with Josh. But what I do remember is just a number of times also having gatherings at the Decker home out in May Valley. And Ed was a guy, and Carol as well, just incredible hospitality. And being a kid, traipsing around with a lot of boys running around, I remember being a little bit afraid of Ed, because the big booming voice and all, and we would get into trouble. But I feel like Ed was a guy who was like, just kind of like, if you're gonna be dumb, you gotta be tough. It's like life, if stuff happens to you, it's like, it's just how it comes. And I've heard stories about some of the battle scars that he had, and it's like he raised his boys and his family kind of the same way. And I learned a lot from that. But I also, as I look back now, I see it's like, wow, an incredible amount of hospitality, of loving God and loving people. And so I see that same, what he passed on and what Carol passed on, also in Joss and Jason. And so that hospitality, we love God, we love people. So I've learned how, if you're gonna be dumb, you gotta be tough, and love God and love people. So love Ed and love the Decker family.
Thank you.
I've known Ed about 20 years. That's how long we've been married. And one of my earliest memories of Ed and Carol, Rachel and I were living in Sydney. And I don't know why they were there. I would just assume a cruise, okay, at this point. But they were in town and they were like, we'd love to see you guys. And I only met them that year previously. And so we met them in downtown Sydney at their hotel. And they took us up, they wanted to show us the view, and then we went to dinner. And of course they treated us, and we went shopping. And we didn't have much at that time in life. And they took us and they bought us each a new outfit.
Oh.
And I just remember how much that meant to us and just how kind it was. Fast forward 10 years later, we're moving back from Ukraine, and we're moving to Washington for the first time to be close to the Deckers. And we didn't have a place to live. And it was November of 2009 or so. And Ed and Carol offered us their home because they were down in the desert. And so we crashed there for, I don't know if it was a couple weeks or a month or whatever, until we found an apartment in Sammamish. But it was just that same vein of just kindness, of just knowing that they're for you. And I think probably we each have felt that from them in this life and from Ed. I know he prayed for us our entire life, that he knew us. And it just means the world to us to know that the man that he was for us, and still is. And so I love Ed. I'm so grateful for him. Grateful for each of you. And Carol, we honor you today. And, yeah, thanks, Josh.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron. Last call, I guess, for any other. All right, yes. Here we go. Go ahead.
Like Ed, I am an ex-Mormon Christian, and I was impacted by Ed Decker long before I ever met him. And I guess that's where I like to shift gears. It's wonderful to be in this intimate setting and just hear all these stories about Ed as a person. What a beautiful human. He was so easy to like, so easy to love. Whether you spent a lot of time with him or less time with him, I didn't spend that much time with him, but just an incredible human being. But I'd like to share a little bit different angle on this. Because I was impacted by Ed many years before I met him when I was living in the Central Valley in California. And I was part of the Saints Alive chapter there, having become a Christian in '73 while at BYU student, reading the book of Romans and getting saved reading Romans.
Wow.
But I heard about this movie, The Godmakers. And so it wasn't easy. There were only a few copies available in those first few years. But our chapter of Saints Alive was able to obtain a copy of the 16 millimeter movie that you had to run through those projectors, and they were always malfunctioning. But we took that film to over 100 churches in the Central Valley, and we would show the film, and we would give our testimony about what God had done in our life. And I would see that film over and over again as we showed it. And I felt like I got to know him just because of that, because I was identifying with so many things. In fact, like you may recall if you've seen the film, you know that there was a family in that movie, the Webster family. When I was in grad school at Santa Clara, I was a Christian, but I thought I was the only one on the planet. I didn't know there was anybody else. And we met the Webster family in Santa Clara. So when I saw the movie, I thought, I know those people. And so I could tell you so many stories about it, but what I'm trying to convey is the impact that Ed had. We're sitting in this room, in this intimate setting, and talking about him as a person, but he impacted the world in a cascade of ministry that just goes on and on and on. If we were to ask everybody to stand up who was impacted by his life, we'd fill Newman Field, maybe a couple Newman Fields. His impact was so great by what he wrote through the Godmakers movie before anybody was doing that kind of thing. If I could characterize Ed in any way at all, I would say courageous faith. He was a man of courage, because years after he did some ministry things in Utah, I found myself doing some of those same things, and I was scared to death. So I can only imagine what my predecessor, Ed Decker, had to go through. But he went right for it. You know, he didn't care about getting poisoned or getting shot at or whatever it was. You know, he just had courage. he said, this is the truth, and God is worth it. Jesus is worth it, and he forged ahead in his faith, and that was a great testimony to me as I had to have courage when I was doing some of the similar things. So I just wanted to give that picture. We're in this little room here, but the impact of Ed Decker is massive.
Thank you so much.
I was fortunate enough to know Ed 45 years ago, I think, the first time we met, and he actually oversaw my ordination. He's very kind, very kind. Thank you to the family for everything you've done. I'm the director of the Saints Live in Tacoma, so we've been praying for your family and Ed, of course, for decades. And so we love you all. And I just thought I'd throw out one story that really kicks off, I think, something that you just have to experience. He was talking about, Ed was talking about putting something up in the King County Fairgrounds. We're going to have a little booth there and talk to people who came by. And I said, oh, what could go wrong? That sounds great. And so we sat down at the table for a bit, and people were walking by, kind of look at the ex-Mormons, and some people just stopped and say, hey, I used to be a Mormon, and they give us some encouragement. And one guy, though, you could just tell. I looked at the corner of my eye, Ed was talking to somebody, and you can see this guy reads it, and he looks down, he sees Ed, you go, man, you know he's going for it. And he went right for it, and he just started in on Ed. Ed was so patient and kind. I'm going, this is amazing. And he finally said, here, come here, sit down, let's talk. And he was just taking everything from this guy. He was really pent up anger. And so I said, Ed, I'll be right back. So I took a lap around the fairgrounds for a second, came back, and they were still sitting, but the guy was still like he was a little bit loosened up. And after about 4 hours, I kept doing it. This guy was really leaning in, just hearing what Ed really had to say from his heart. And it just kept going until the fairground was shut down, and the guy took off, and Ed the next morning said, the guy called me at 3 a.m. And we talked for another hour. Sorry. I have to say I had a stroke a year ago, so my emotions just flow real easy. So that he said, guys, we talked for another 2 hours. And the next day, the guy gave his life to Christ. And so it's one of those small moments in time. He had a long life. And this is just one moment in time, but I was able to experience it with him, so it's pretty exciting.
What a wonderful story. Thank you for sharing it with us. I think Brooklyn thought she wants to share something here. My daughter.
Hi. I just wanted to share something that happened about last year, because I was in history class actually, and we were having like a discussion, and we were starting with like Mormonism and just like something that had happened during history with that. And I had said something like in discussion, like, oh yeah, my grandpa, and then I made a quick comment about something that he had did, and my teacher's looking at me and he's like, Decker. And then he goes, is your grandpa Ed Decker? And I go, yeah. And he's like, I mean, he looked at me like starstruck, and it was the funniest thing ever. And he told me that when he was in high school, like, he went to a high school that was predominantly Mormon, and he would try to sing classes where people would be talking about it, and he had a really hard time being like one of the only Christians in his school. And he said that when he was so alone, like, he would just buy all of my papa's books, go to the library and grab them, and that was the only thing that would help him get through high school in that time. And I thought that was like really beautiful to see, like, someone that like is just some random person in my, like, some, you know what I mean? Like, my grandpa didn't know what I told my grandpa. I mean, it's like he had no idea who that man was, but it just shows like the impact that he had on this world and all like the lives that he changed just from that. And I mean, he was like starstruck that I like, because I'm like, oh, that's just my grandpa. Like, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I think like it was really sweet getting him to, when he lived at our house these last couple of years, you know, like when his memory got kind of rough, and he would slowly just, you know, kind of not really know what to say sometimes when I would go over there, and I would sometimes just sit with him because there wasn't a lot that he could say with his ability, but he would always remember this one story, and he would tell me it every single time I went over there. It kind of got old, but every single time he would tell me it, and it would just make, every time he had the biggest smile on his face. He would tell me when I was little, when they were at their old house, I was like playing with, my grandparents were babysitting me, and my parents were on a little date night or something, and me and my grandma were running around this little like ottoman or something. I was just playing a game. I was probably like 2 or something. We were probably playing for like 10 minutes. And I looked at him, I don't remember it obviously, but he tells me he was just sitting down, like maybe on his iPad or something, like obviously, always on his iPad. But, I stopped, like when we were playing the game, I was like, my grandma was out of breath, we were just, and I just stopped, and I went up to him, and I sat on his lap, and I said, Papa, 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 and I just sat with him and cuddled with him, and he would tell me that story every single time I went over there, and I just think, he was just such an amazing person and had a really great impact on my life, and I'm really glad that he's in an amazing place when he was suffering so much, and yeah.
Thank you for all those stories. It means a lot. I have a fun thing to share with you guys, and I'll get this over here in a minute here. All right, I'm going to get through this. Don't worry. So I'll just read it to you. This is actually, you'll be able to read this yourself later, and it'll make sense in a moment here. And after this is done, we're going to put up a fun slideshow. We were going to do that in the middle, but we realized that we would just be complete wrecks by the end of the slideshow and not be able to talk. Because the slideshow is awesome, but it also makes you sad because you're looking back on a life well lived. But what I'm going to share with you now, I'll just go ahead and read it. What a wonderful privilege and honor it has been to be the son of John Edward Decker Jr. As far as fathers go, I hit the jackpot. There's only one perfect father, our Heavenly Father, but my dad didn't leave much room for improvement. He was loving, kind, generous, and I'm so thankful for him. He was diligent and hardworking, and he did everything in his life with excellence. As the youngest child of 8, which is a lot, born to my dad, I was very grateful to be part of such a large family. It was a blessing. My older siblings, including my half-siblings from my dad's first marriage, treated me with value and respect and loved me. And I learned from an early age that family was truly a gift from God. One thing well known about my parents is they lived their lives with their palms wide open to heaven, and they held on tightly to nothing. As we got older and I started my own family, the roles started to reverse. From them taking care of us to us taking care of them. My parents began needing more help than they were giving out. And one morning in 2020, so maybe it was late 2019, I can't remember the specifics because that was right about the beginning of COVID. I got a phone call from Dad, and he was just in tears. He was distraught. My mom had open heart surgery in 2017, and MRSA, and in and out of the hospitals, and it depleted their life savings. And my mom's lucky; it's a miracle that she's here actually. He called me and said. And he had a bad fall, which is what else happened. So he called me and just said, it's time. I can't do this. We can't do this anymore. We need to sell this house and come back up to Seattle, and we don't know where we're going to live. And Jocelyn and I offered to take them in, but we lived in a house with all the bedrooms on the top floor. And long story short, miracles happened, and we got the place that we have now, and we were able to bring them in. And so they moved in with us. And that was such a blessing and honor for that to happen. In the spring of 2024, my dad unfortunately had a stroke, and things got much more challenging. He was placed into hospice care at our home. Most people go into hospice and last 2, 3, 4 weeks, maybe a couple months. My dad set a new record, I think. He pulled 20 months in the hospice program. Nicoletta is an angel from heaven. She was Dad's hospice nurse for the most of that time. And I'm so honored that you're here today. Thank you so much, Nicoletta. The hospice program, by the way, at Evergreen Hospital. Can I pre-sign up for that? I'm a little early, but what an amazing, it's truly a ministry on their own, the way that they take care of people and families. Let me find my spot here. So he enjoyed visits from his favorite nurse and always had a smile on his face. Even in his worst conditions, He always found the energy to share a joke and make people laugh. I can hardly remember a single complaint from him, unless it was, of course, that we had run out of maple bars. Which is one of the things that when you leave today, I'd love to have Dad's favorite maple bar in the world. Even if you're on a diet, or gluten-free, or whatever, take a nibble, take a bite, take one home. Towards the end of his journey through hospice, he was not able to sit at the computer. Oh, I skipped a paragraph, I'm sorry. The main reason he hung on for so long was, of course, because he loved my mom and didn't want to leave her. And I assured Dad that she would never be alone and that we would take care of her the rest of her life, which is an honor and a privilege. Another reason he was hanging on for so long is that people that knew him closely knew that he had started working on a book called The Life of Ed, which is unlike any book he'd ever written. It wasn't religious, it was a bunch of short stories, a lot of humor, and he got about 75-80% done with it until he got to the point where he really couldn't do any more on it. And so he'd get up, he'd get the energy, he'd sit at the computer or bring the laptop to him in the bed and he'd try to work on it. And I just, he got to the point where it was clear that he wasn't going to be able to finish it. And I made him a promise that I would finish it for him. Sorry. My prayer is that you enjoy this lighthearted look into my dad's adventurous life, and with this wit and humor, as they come through the pages, and encourage you to be influenced by these stories from my dad's journey, that you would live your lives with your palms open to the sky, and that you do not hold on to your earthly treasures with a clenched fist. A practical note, this is not the kind of book you might expect my dad to write. It's not preaching at you, it's not super heavily religious, but obviously my dad lived a wonderful life and experienced a lot of things. So this story, just to give you some insight in it, is written in two parts. The first part is called The Life of Ed, and it's a collection of autobiographical stories covering parts of his life that were foundational to whom it was. It wasn't a start-to-finish description of every chapter of his life. In fact, there's massive gaps in his story in there, and it just is what it is, and it's a beautiful story. And then the second half of it, my dad had this alter ego. It was called Ned. And so he'd sign up for like these blog spot things and Nextdoor accounts, and he this funny stories that he would tell that many of us have heard, and he always signed them by the name Ned. I think it was an escape from his like religious profile of being a serious author and biblical this and theologian, and it was like his chance to tell funny stories. So the second half of the book is called The Life of Ned, and he got about 80% done with it. So we had this beautiful puzzle to put together that I was honored to finish for him, and I'll show it to you here. But there's a copy of it for everyone here. Just take one per family. If you need more copies, we can make arrangements for that. But at the door, there'll be a copy for your family to take home. And finally, the last chapter of the book is called Zealous for God, which we put in there. It was one of his favorite sermons. He spoke on it many times, probably at every church he ever pastored at. And we went ahead and did a transcript of that in the final chapter. So may your heart be open to hearing from God, and that your life can be transformed as you read it. And I'm going to read the closing statement, try to get through it. May we wake up each morning with songs of praise on our lips, asking God, what are you going to use for me today? May we be ready for divine appointments, ready in season and out of season, willing to go anywhere and do anything for the sake of the gospel. May we be consumed with zeal for God, so that when our lives are over, we can say with Paul, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. This is the call, this is the challenge, this is the life of being a zealot for God, and this is the life that my dad so beautifully showed us. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and do a lighthearted, fun look back on his life, and James is going to go make sure the audio is at the right volume, and then afterwards we can mingle, and there's no rush to get out of here. We are so honored as a family to have each and every single one of you here today. It's an honor for us to share this time with you. And we'll be around afterwards if you want to say something or give us a hug. And again, thank you so much for being here. It's an honor. Thank you.
It's so important to make someone happy. Make just one someone happy. Make just one heart-to-heart you. You sing to one smile that cheers you, one face that lights when it nears you, one girl you're everything to. Fame, if you win it, comes and goes in a minute. Where's the real stuff in life to cling to? Love is the answer. Someone to love is the answer. Once you've found her, build your world around her. Make someone happy. Make just one someone happy, and you will be happy too.
I can't remember when you weren't there, when I didn't care for anyone but you. I swear we've been through everything there is. Can't imagine anything we've missed. Can't imagine anything the two of us can't do. Through the years, you've never let me down. You've turned my life around. The sweetest days I've found with you. Through the years, I've never been afraid. I've loved the life we've made, and I'm so glad I stayed right here with you through the years. I can't remember what I used to do, who I trusted, who I listened to before. I swear you've taught me everything I know. Can't imagine needing someone so. But through the years it seems to me I need you more and more. Through the years, through all the good and bad, I know how much we had. I've always been so glad to be with you. Through the years, it's better every day. You've kissed my tears away. As long as it's okay, I'll stay with you through the years. Through the years when everything went wrong, together we were strong. I know that I belong right here with you. Through the years, I never had
someone like you cared for me. You put this love in my heart. I tried but could not refuse. You gave me no time to choose. You put this love in my heart. I wanna know where the bad feelings go when I'm depressed and I get down so low, and then I see you coming to me and it's alright. I wanna tell you right now, I'm not afraid to say how you put this love in my heart. There are some times when I doubt, but you always find me out. You put this love in my heart. 'Cause when I see all that you've done for me, it's hard to doubt, I just have to believe. 'Cause you're a follower, proving all of your love. Well, I know the loneliness I had before is gone now. I'll never feel it anymore. 'Cause your loving has released me from all that's in my past. And I know I can believe you, yeah, when you say I'll never be forsaken. Your love is gonna last. You put this love in my heart. 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 You put this love in my heart, yeah. You put this love in my heart. You put this love in my heart. You put this love in my heart, yeah. You put this love in my heart.
You make me feel so young. You make me feel so spring has sprung. And every time I see you grin, I'm such a happy individual. The moment that you speak, I wanna go play hide and seek. I wanna go and bounce the moon just like a toy balloon. You and I are just like a couple of tots running across a meadow, picking up lots of forget-me-nots. You make me feel so young. You make me feel there are songs to be sung, bells to be rung, and a wonderful fling to be flung. And even when I'm old and gray, I'm gonna feel the way I do today. 'Cause you make me feel so young. You make me feel so young. You make me feel so spring has sprung. And every time I see you grin, I'm such a happy individual. The moment that you speak, I wanna go and play hide and seek. I wanna go and bounce the moon just like a toy balloon. You and I are just like a couple of tots running across a meadow, picking up lots of forget-me-nots. You make me feel so young. You make me feel there are songs to be sung, bells to be rung, wonderful fling to be flung. And even when I'm old and gray, I'm gonna feel the way I do today. 'Cause you make make me feel so young. You make me feel so young. You make me feel so young. Ooh, you make me feel so young.